Hello and welcome to this week. We are in the final stretches. Annotated bibliographies were turned in last night, and I'll get them graded in the next couple of days. I was a little disappointed in the discussions on terrorism. I know the question was which poses the greater threat, the greater risk to the United States, and I asked you to defend your answers. It seems like I got the same answers copied and pasted from the FBI without any thought or any deliberation into the discussion. Okay, so just because you live in the United States does not make you a domestic terrorist. The way the FBI defines terrorism, domestic or international or foreign, is based upon the influence of the terrorist. So if this terrorist, this school shooter, and I know a lot of you mentioned, well, the domestic terrorists focus on soft targets like schools and bars and places such as that, where international terrorists focus on high value targets like the World Trade Center, the Super Bowl. In 2013, there was some information found by ISIS where ISIS had planned to attack schools across the United States based upon the attacks in Batslan, Russia, where they killed 260 students. They held the police at bay for 3 days. They waited till CNN showed up, and then they just started blowing things up. It's important that you understand the difference between international terrorism and domestic terrorism, and that is the influence. Who influenced this? So domestically, domestic terrorism, you've got ALF and ELF, and you've got the militia, and you've got the various hate groups. You've got the anti-abortion groups. You've got the pro-abortion groups. You've got Black Bloc. You've got Antifa. These are all domestic terrorist groups. And if you are aligned with one of these individuals, or as one of you mentioned, you're just a lone wolf, like the shooter down in Uvalde and the Uvalde Elementary School shooting a couple years ago. I wrote a paper on that, published a paper on that. Those are domestic terrorists. And are they more dangerous than international terrorists? International terrorists are influenced by foreign actors or foreign terrorist groups. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Black Hand, the Red Hand, the state country of Iran, the state country of North Korea. There are a lot of different groups. And who is the greater threat to the United States? Okay, Facebook, I saw a couple reels on Facebook that Iran is calling to activate the sleeper cells in England and the United States to start killing people. Even if these are random lone wolf attacks, they were still influenced by Iran. They were still influenced by Hezbollah. They were influenced by Hamas. They were influenced by any of the other individuals who are internationally based, and that would make them an international terrorist. I cited and I used a citation of the attack in Austin where that man walked down 6th Street killing people. He was wearing a t-shirt that said property of Iran, all praise be to Allah. He was carrying an Iranian flag, even though he was hitting soft targets, even though he was a lone wolf terrorist. He was influenced by international powers and thus he would be considered an international terrorist. An international terrorist. The the importance of this, so the importance of um, measuring the difference and then understanding the difference. You can't dictate or say that the domestic terrorists are more of a greater threat to the United States than international terrorists if you don't understand the influences and the differences between. I did put up several uh, different PowerPoints in last week's module. Please go back and review them. So this week we are looking at, let me share my screen. This week we are looking at criminal investigations. Let's go to our content screen. Go to the content screen, and in criminal investigations, we've got Inspector Clouseau standing there. Okay, you've got the PowerPoint I'm about to cover. I might put some more PowerPoints up about profiling. I thought about just discussing and doing a lecture on criminal profiling instead of criminal investigations, but I'll just add some more PowerPoints to this module. Criminal investigations is something I've been teaching for 20 years. Got some blood splatter PowerPoints I'll put up for you as well, and some other criminal investigations types PowerPoints to help you understand. The quiz this week, the discussion this week is, what are some of the purposes of surveillance? When would surveillance be useful in investigation? When can surveillance be a violation of the Fourth Amendment? Explain your answers. There are several cases dealing with the Fourth Amendment and our protections and our privacies and our rights against being surveilled. I'd like to see much more detailed discussions this week. I may be graceful and not punish and not count off a whole lot for this past week's discussions, but I really do need to see more effort this week about surveillance, the Fourth Amendment, and how we are legally allowed to participate in surveillance. So we'll get that going, and hopefully we'll see it. Okay, criminal investigations, chapter 10 of our textbook. It's one of the most important functions of law enforcement. Okay, and it's criminal investigations to the public, to the detectives, the judge. You know, a lot of people, the TV and Hollywood make it a glamorous job. You know, but it is one of the most challenging roles in policing. Okay, criminal investigations is an exceedingly complex field. So the goals of criminal investigation is to determine whether a crime is committed, even before you can investigate a crime, even before you can look into whether or not a crime was committed, can be investigated. A bad guy can be sent to jail. You have to determine whether or not a crime was committed. So a couple weeks ago, I was at work, and I think I shared this. An inmate threatened to smoke my ass. He goes, "Don't listen to him. We're going to smoke his ass." I took that as a death threat. I wrote it up as a death threat, but you know, and I wanted civil charges to be filed for terroristic threat, but none of it went through because the man didn't scare me. I wasn't afraid of him, and because I could not dictate or show fear, that in turn. Leveled that it couldn't be a threat because the threat did not cause fear as it was intended. He was just ended up running off at the mouth. If I would have called an ICS, that would have showed fear. And I didn't because I didn't think it was necessary because the guy didn't scare me. All right. Then you have to legally obtain information and evidence following the Fourth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment. You have to find a suspect. You have to arrest the suspect. You have to recover any stolen property. You have to, after trial, you have to return that stolen property. You have to present the best possible case to the prosecutor so the prosecutor can take this to trial. If your evidence sucks, so does the case, and the prosecutor's not going to take it. If your grammar is bad, the prosecutor's not going to take your case because the defense attorney is going to criticize, and he's going to look into, and he's going to look at your grammar as you and your writing capabilities as part of your I forgot the word I'm looking for. It was right there. Competence. There we go. Thank you. Sorry. Excuse me. If your grammar is horrible, if your writing is horrible, if your case files are bad, this becomes an issue. And when you're called to trial, your competence is called into question. Okay. So wheels in motion. The investigative process starts or it's initiated by an officer's personal observation. Okay. It is initiated by a phone call. There is no investigation that starts without a complaint. You have to have a complaint. You have to have somebody that complains, or you have to have a police officer to personally observe what's going on, personally observe a suspicious action, or call in and phone in a suspicious action or person. Okay. And then the officers respond. Parole officer is typically the investigator, especially in small towns. As the towns increase in size, then you find specialized departments. Okay, so I used to live in a small town called Tye, Texas. I was a paramedic for the city. I was a volunteer paramedic for the city of Tye, and we had walking small Johnny Walker, who was the chief of police. He was also the assistant chief of police. He was also patrol. He was also investigations. He was also missing persons. He was also property theft. He was the only cop in the police department. He did everything, including washing bottles and cleaning guns. Any arrests that he made, he would take into Taylor County and into Abilene, and they would go to Taylor County Jail in Abilene. So a lot of the duties and responsibilities for the preliminary investigation first is to secure the scene. Okay. You need to attend to any existing emergencies. If you need to stop the killing, then you can stop the bleeding, and then you secure the scene. Make any necessary arrests on the scene as necessary. You want to search for evidence. You want to take pictures of everything. If it looks like it could be evidence, you collect it. You interview victims and you interview witnesses. You canvass the area. Did you see something? Did you see anything? Is there anything that's going on? And then you need to record all statements and observations in a notebook. Nowadays, most police officers are carrying body cams. So you just turn on the body cam and you make sure that you video and audio record the discussions, and then it will help with your making your notes and writing your reports later. Okay, so who investigates? Well, the line personnel. The police officers, who are the first responders, initiate the investigation. Then you have specialized teams. You've got, even the federal government's got the ATF. The ATF investigates alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. Okay. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, investigate interstate crime, specifically bank robbing, the kidnapping, things to that nature. The bomb squad, also at the local unit, at the local level, investigates explosives and bombs and such not. The crime scene unit. The crime scene unit normally are civilians. They may be former police officers, but they are evidence collection and evidence analysis technicians. Okay. And because of the TV show CSI and NCIS and all of these other shows, and these criminal investigation procedural shows, the public has an unrealistic expectation on what CSI can do. CSI cannot get autopsy reports in 24 hours. You can barely, do a toxicology in 24 hours. There are only so many authorized uh, medical examiners. Medical examiners are normally in the larger cities. The forensics labs and morgues are in the major cities. So follow-up investigations always go, secondary follow-up, leave patrol, and they go into property or human investigations or human crimes, crimes against humans, crimes against property. And they review and analyze all these reports. They do follow-up interviews with witnesses and victims. They identify and apprehend suspects. They determine the level of involvement of suspects. They check criminal histories. Then they prepare the case for prosecution. And then they send this whole package over to the DA's office, who will make a decision whether or not he's going to bring it to the grand jury to get a warrant for an arrest. Successful resolution is the evidence. You want to use the Lockhart exchange principle, and I like the Lockhart exchange principle. Well, let's back up to proxy data. Proxy data is your cell phones, your computers, all of the stuff. We have all kinds of technology now that tracks us and knows where we are. I play a game called Pokemon Go. My students got me involved in it back when I was at Howard College, and I still play. But that game tracks every step I make, everywhere I am, everywhere I go. We've got other proximity data. We can ping your cell phones to find out once you become a suspect. We can ping your cell phones to find out where you've been, because nobody can go home. Nobody leaves. Nobody goes anywhere without their phone. Okay. I'm in class right now, and my phone's probably extremely hot. Let me put it over here in the shade because it's getting warm. And then I have my work phone that also tracks me in my every step, my every place, my every phone call, everything that I do. The Lockhart exchange principle is, and I really wish I would have gone to that particular slide, but the Lockhart exchange, if you draw a triangle, and each point of the triangle, you have the victim, you have on one corner, you've got the suspect on another corner, and you've got the crime scene on a third. Okay. And the Lockhart exchange principle suggests that if you are a victim of a crime, you're going to find evidence of the suspect and evidence of the crime scene upon the victim. You're going to find evidence of the victim and the crime scene on the suspect. You're going to find evidence from both the victim and the suspect at the crime scene. And this is the Lockhart exchange principle. Every time you leave somewhere, every time you sit somewhere, every time you do anything, you leave part of yourself behind, even if it's skin cells. So just to think, you're going to class today. You're going to go sit in Dr. Wilson's class, and he's going to be sitting there, and he's going to be teaching you whatever class he's teaching right today. And you're going to be sitting in a chair that probably hasn't been cleaned in weeks. So you've got the dead skin cells, you've got hair follicles, you've got whatever else, COVID, whatever other problems that the people that have sat in that chair before you for the last several months. Okay. Because they might wipe down the tables, they might clean the board, but they never clean the chairs. They never clean the seats until in between semesters. And then that's only if you're lucky. So the Lockhart exchange principle says that you're going to leave part of you there in that classroom, and you're going to bring part of that classroom with you. and anybody else that you come in contact with. When you hug somebody, I've got a German Shepherd. I pet that German Shepherd and I end up covered in dog hair. It's just the way that life is. And this is the Lockhart exchange principle. So there's different classifications of evidence. There's testimonial evidence. Okay. So testimonial evidence is the verbal, spoken testimony from witnesses, from victims, from suspects. You've got your documentary evidence, and this is written journals, computer files. Okay, so I have all of these jump drives, and all these jump drives have different stuff on them. That is considered documentary evidence. I've got, let me see. This jump drive right here, it's 2 GB, and on it it has the feasibility study to start a graduate program at the University of Texas Permian Basin. Okay, so that is all evidence that I collected. Okay, the documentary evidence is the documents that identify, label, and describe the physical evidence that's been collected. And then there's demonstrative evidence. Okay, so if I wanted to sit and explain how the Lockhart exchange principle worked, I would have a display that's showing the triangle and how all of that stuff works. So the kinds of evidence that we find are physical evidence, are fingerprints, blood, hair, DNA. There's digital electronic evidence. And other kinds of evidence. We've already covered body fluids, and everything has to follow a chain of custody. Okay, so for example, a couple weeks ago, and I think I shared this, a couple weeks ago, somebody was trying to fly in a backpack using a drone into the prison. Okay, and we're not going to be able to prosecute this either because the chain of evidence was broke. So this backpack, this drone dropped the backpack into the razor wire at the top of the fence. So the proper chain of evidence would have been proper documentation at the chain of evidence is to take a picture of the backpack in the fence. You take a picture of the backpack being removed from the fence and who was removing that evidence. Okay, and then you put it on the ground. And it is then passed the chain of custody. The chain of evidence goes from the officer that dug the backpack out of the razor wire without getting majorly hurt. And then it goes to the shift supervisor. The shift supervisor claims the custody, okay, and he has to document that he received it from the officer. He wants to take pictures of it. He wants to inventory what was in that backpack. In that particular backpack, there were 8 cell phones. There were 8 chargers. There were 32 packs of Newport cigarettes. And there was 14 ounces of methamphetamine and several pages of K2. So he took all of this evidence and he brought it and he put it in the evidence locker. And then he secured and put it in the evidence locker. And then OIG shows up. He takes it out of the evidence locker and he brings it to the lab so that the K2 can be tested, so that the meth can be tested, so that the tobacco can be tested, so that the phones can be documented. Okay. And he brings it to the lab. And all of this has to be tracked. But because the chain of custody broke at the beginning, because there was no chain of custody showing the evidence where it was found, there was no evidence of and no documentation of the evidence being processed by supervision, taken out of the fence and brought to supervision to where it could be inventoried. All of this evidence is tainted, and they can't go to trial with it to catch the bad guy. The National Academy of Sciences, they see many deficiencies. within criminal investigations. They're calling for major reforms, uh, new research. They're looking for stronger standards and protocols, and they're finding that there's a scarcity of peer-reviewed studies because law enforcement is very secretive about what they do, and they don't let academics like myself or Dr. Wilson or any of the other faculty in the criminal justice to go investigate what they're doing. The FBI is engaged in improving forensic capabilities, um, but um, we're struggling at getting that done. So, crime mapping and analysis. Artificial intelligence. Even though we don't like you using it in school, we use it in the real world. We use AI to identify hotspots, to identify where there is an increase. For example, I just did a research study because I've been having a lot of difficulties with the Muslim community at my prison. And in 2024, before I got there, there were only 14 major cases among the Muslim community in my prison. In 2025, that number had doubled to 34. And then they're on path this year to have over 60 major cases in the Muslim community. Okay, so this is an issue with the leadership. It might be an issue with me. We don't know. I don't know. We'll find out. We're not real. I guess they'll find out because I'm submitting my resignation, and I'm not staying there anymore. You can do geographic profiling. You can look at the certain places within the city, or the certain groups within the city that are causing the major problems. You can look at cell phone data, and then you can look into data that's embedded into photographs. Nobody can do anything without substantiating it on Facebook. Okay, so you need to define crime. And borrowing is one of the words that they use. Okay, FBI's index, part one index offenses include 4 crimes against persons, 4 crimes against property. Okay. So against persons, you've got murder or homicide. You've got sexual assault. You've got aggravated assault or just assault. Sometimes it's called battery. And then you've got robbery. Crimes against property, you have grand theft, you have burglary, you have auto theft, and you have arson. And then there are other serious crimes, crimes against children, hate crimes, computer-related crimes, extortion, environmental crimes, and all of those issues such as. Okay, but you need to really make sure, and right now, the UCR, the Uniform Crime Report, is what is defining what is and what is not crime. Okay, so violent crimes, I've covered those. Property crimes, I've covered those. Okay, beyond the index crimes, you've got hate crimes, environmental crimes, electronic cyber crimes, and then filing false reports. There are victimless crimes or vice crimes. Prostitution and pornography are victimless crimes for the most part, sometimes. But let's back up a screen. In here that you don't see is human trafficking. And human trafficking is an extremely important, serious crime. And it is a crime beyond the index crimes. And human trafficking, I'll put the human trafficking, I'll see if I can find all of those lectures and put them up. Prostitution is typically a victimless crime because the prostitute wants to sell him or herself. Pornography, that woman is normally, or that man, both genders, are voluntarily participating in pornography. The escort services that you find on Craigslist in the back of some magazines. Our crime investigations focuses on arresting the Johns, who are also voluntarily paying money for sexual access. Okay, the use of the internet has gotten increasing. Booking, gaming, gambling, okay, and that's also increasing with the use of the internet. So surveillance is tedious and it's dangerous. Okay. Under surveillance is done through undercover assignments. There's overt and covert. There's open. I'm watching Sons of Anarchy right now. I'm on season 4, and the sheriff has his police officers openly following the Sons everywhere that they go. This is an overt uh, surveillance. Covert surveillance is putting somebody undercover. Okay. So the FBI and the ATF have undercover agents with the people who are dealing with the Sons of Anarchy. Okay, you've got people in light cover and deep cover. You've got informants. You've got your confidential informants. All of these people are gathering information and they're surveilling the bad guys who are under investigation. We have raids where we use information that we've gotten to perform raids, to do mass searches. You've got stings where you set up fencing operations. You set up Johns to arrest prostitutes. You put prostitutes in a world to where they can arrest Johns. Okay, so shifting investigation work. Until recent history, all investigations was reactive. There's a crime, and now we're going to go investigate that crime and find the bad guy. We're moving that to reactive, from reactive to proactive. Now we're looking at preventing crime from happening. We use Facebook, we use the chat rooms, we use the dark web to listen to the chatter that's going on, to investigate and to stop crime before it even starts. We put together problem-solving task force using SARA. We want to use SARA to look for problems that are in the community, look for ways to remedy and to decrease and to resolve those problems. And you have to use community-oriented policing. You have to get citizens to become your allies. You have to get the citizens to trust you as a police officer. So investigation work, you can read in the textbook about the Oakland Airport Motel Program, a lot dealing with scanning, analysis, response, assessments, the judge's commentary on the crime and the criminality that's going on in Oakland Airport motels. So criminal investigations, I'm going to let you read that case yourself, and I'd like you to use portions or evidence from the Oakland Airport motels in your discussion of surveillance. And if I don't see a discussion about that case in your discussion, in your original discussion post, I will take points away from you. So that is our session for today. We're doing well. Those of you that have already answered and adjusted the criminal investigation discussion, go ahead and please edit and add a discussion to the Oakland Airport motel investigation. All right, so let me stop sharing my screen. Come back over here. Yes, the sun is bright today. I'll see you guys in the forums.